He signed the papers to set her free. She vanished with his child. Years later, enemies chained them together, and the truth became their deadliest weapon. If you've ever wondered whether love can survive absolute power, stay until the end of this story. And when you do, hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled across the world. The pen felt heavier than any gun Victor Hale had ever held. He sat at the head of a table in his downtown attorney's office, the divorce papers spread before him like a map to redemption. Across from him, Lena Ward kept her eyes on the document, her slim fingers tracing the edge of the page but never quite touching it. She wore a cream sweater that swallowed her small frame, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger than her 28 years. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply waited. "Sign it," Victor said quietly. His voice carried the weight of a man who had given orders that ended lives, but now he was giving one that might save one. "Please." Lena looked up then, her gray eyes meeting his. There was something in that gaze that made his chest tighten, not anger, not relief, but a kind of resigned understanding that frightened him more than any threat ever had. "You're sure this is what you want?" she asked. "It's what you need," he replied. And that was the truth stripped bare. You deserve a life that doesn't come with bodyguards and bulletproof glass. She had been a veterinarian when they met, a woman who spent her days saving animals that others had given up on. He had walked into her clinic with a gunshot wound hidden beneath his jacket and a German shepherd bleeding out in his arms. She had saved the dog first, then turned those steady hands on him, asking no questions, even as she stitched skin that had been torn by a rival's bullet. He had fallen in love with her silence, her strength, the way she could look at violence and choose compassion anyway. But love in his world was a weapon that others learned to use against you. 3 months ago, his enemies had sent a message written in fire. They had burned down her clinic with her inside, and only luck and a faulty lock had let her escape through a back window. She had come home to him with soot on her face and terror in her eyes, and he had held her while she shook, knowing that his touch was both comfort and curse. He couldn't protect her from what he was, so he was setting her free. Lena picked up the pen. Her hand trembled once, then steadied. She signed her name in careful script, Lena Catherine Ward, and pushed the papers toward him. Victor added his signature below hers. The attorney, a gray-haired man who had learned long ago not to ask questions, gathered the documents and excused himself from the room. They sat in silence. "Where will you go?" Victor asked finally. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." Lena stood, smoothing her sweater with both hands. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can rebuild. I'll make sure you have everything you need, money, protection if you want it. I don't want anything from you, Victor." Her voice was soft but absolute. "That's the point of this, isn't it? A clean break." He rose to his feet, this man who controlled half the criminal enterprise in the Eastern Corridor, who could make people disappear with a phone call, who had built an empire on fear and loyalty. But standing before this small woman who smelled of lavender and antiseptic, he felt powerless. "I love you," he said, because it needed to be said one last time. Lena's expression didn't change. "I know you do. That's why I'm leaving." She walked to the door, and every instinct in him screamed to stop her, to lock the door and refuse to let her go, to keep her close even if it killed them both. But he had learned something in all his years of violence and control. Sometimes the greatest act of love was letting go. "Lena." She paused, her hand on the doorknob. "If you ever need anything, I won't." The door closed behind her with a sound like a gunshot. Victor stood alone in the attorney's office, surrounded by leather-bound law books and the ghost of her lavender scent, and told himself he had done the right thing. He had freed her from the constant danger of being loved by a man like him. She could start over, find someone kind and ordinary, live the peaceful life she deserved. He would learn to live with the emptiness. That night, Victor returned to the penthouse they had shared for 2 years. Her things were already gone. Clothes, books, the collection of ceramic animals she had kept on the windowsill. She had been thorough, erasing herself from his space with the same quiet efficiency she brought to everything. Only one thing remained. On the kitchen counter, she had left her keys and a single note written on the back of a grocery receipt. "Thank you for letting me go." Victor poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Below, the streets glittered with life. Cars and people, an ordinary existence continuing without pause. Somewhere down there, Lena was beginning a new life without him. He raised the glass to his lips and drank, welcoming the burn. His phone rang. Marcus Chen, his second in command, his voice tight with tension. "We've got a problem." Victor closed his eyes. Business, always business. The Empire didn't stop for heartbreak. What kind of problem? "The Volkov brothers are moving on the waterfront territories. They hit 2 of our warehouses tonight, took out 6 men. The Volkovs, Russian syndicate, new to the city, hungry for territory and too stupid to understand the established order. Victor had been watching them for months, waiting for them to make exactly this kind of mistake. "Gather the captains," Victor said, his voice dropping into the cold register that made grown men flinch. "We respond tomorrow night, hard and final." "You want me to pull surveillance on the girl?" Victor's hand tightened on the glass. He had put a 3-man team on Lena the moment she left the attorney's office. Not to control her, just to know she was safe, that she made it wherever she was going without incident. "No, let her go." "Boss, if the Volkovs know about her." "They don't. The marriage wasn't public record. Only our people knew, and our people don't talk." He paused. "Pull the team, Marcus. She's not part of this anymore." A long silence, then, "Understood." Victor ended the call and finished his whiskey. He poured another glass, then thought better of it and put the bottle away. He had work to do. An empire to defend, enemies to crush, a reputation to maintain. Lena was safe now. That was all that mattered. He went to bed telling himself that lie. Mobbed. Lena made it 3 blocks before the tears came. She sat in her decade-old Honda in a grocery store parking lot, gripping the steering wheel with both hands, trying to breathe through the grief that threatened to split her open. She had known this day was coming for weeks, had prepared herself mentally and emotionally, had told herself she was strong enough to walk away. But nothing had prepared her for the look in Victor's eyes when he told her he loved her, or the way her own heart had cracked when she said she was leaving. She loved him. That was the terrible truth she couldn't speak aloud. She loved the man who had held her through nightmares, who had learned to cook her favorite meals, who had read to her from poetry books in the dark hours of the morning when neither of them could sleep. She loved the version of Victor that existed only with her, gentle, uncertain, almost vulnerable. But she couldn't separate that man from the one who ordered executions, who built his fortune on drugs and gambling and protection rackets, who wore violence like other men wore cologne. And now there was another complication, one that made leaving both necessary and unbearable. Lena pressed one hand to her stomach, still flat, still showing no sign of the 8-week secret she carried. She was pregnant. She had known for 5 days, had taken 3 different tests to be certain, had sat in her car outside the drugstore trying to decide what to do with this information. Tell Victor and watch him try to build a cage of protection around her and their child? Stay and raise a baby in a world of constant danger where every birthday party and school play would come with armed guards and threat assessments? Or leave and give their child a chance at a normal life? The choice had been clear, even if it destroyed her. Lena started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. She had a plan, had been building it in careful detail for the past week. First, she would drive to her sister's house in Philadelphia, stay there for a few days to establish a trail. Then she would withdraw cash from her accounts, ditch her car, and disappear properly. She had friends from veterinary school scattered across the country, people Victor didn't know about. She could reach out quietly, find work under the table while she established a new identity. It wouldn't be easy, but she had learned from the best how to vanish when necessary. Victor had taught her well, even if he didn't know it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Sarah. "Are you okay? You sounded strange on the phone earlier." Lena typed a response. "I'm fine. Be there in 2 hours. Love you." She merged onto the highway and didn't look back. Book it. Victor spent the next 3 days orchestrating a response to the Volkov incursion that would be remembered for years. He moved through the planning with mechanical precision, signing off on strategies and allocating resources, while inside him something fundamental continued to crack. He missed her. He missed the sound of her moving through the penthouse in the morning, the way she hummed while making coffee, the particular silence that came from having someone you loved nearby. The space felt wrong without her, too large and too empty, echoing with absence. But he didn't call, didn't send flowers or gifts or any of the 100 gestures that might have brought her back into his orbit. He had promised her a clean break, and he would honor that promise even if it killed him. On the 4th day, Marcus came to him with news that made Victor's blood run cold. "Lena's gone." Victor looked up from the tactical map spread across his desk. "What do you mean, gone?" "I know you said to pull surveillance, but I kept one guy on her just until she was settled." He followed her to Philadelphia, to her sister's place. She stayed 3 days, then left. Said she was going to visit a friend in Ohio. But she never made it to Ohio, boss. She ditched her car at a rest stop, withdrew maximum cash from 3 different ATMs, and disappeared. Victor stood slowly. "When?" "Yesterday afternoon. I wasn't going to tell you. Figured she just wanted privacy, but..." Marcus hesitated. "Her sister filed a missing persons report this morning. Said Lena called her last night crying, said she loved her and to take care of herself. Sister's convinced something bad happened." The room tilted. Victor gripped the edge of his desk, mind racing through possibilities. Had someone taken her? Had the Volkovs found out about her despite his precautions? Or had she run from something else entirely? "Find her," Victor said, his voice deadly calm. "Use every resource we have. Check traffic cameras, ATM footage, credit card transactions. Talk to her friends, her colleagues, anyone who might know where she'd go." "Boss, maybe she just wants..." "Find her, Marcus. I don't care what it takes or what it costs. Find her." Marcus nodded and left. Victor stood alone in his office, staring at the maps without seeing them. Something was wrong. Lena wouldn't have left like that, wouldn't have frightened her sister, wouldn't have disappeared so completely unless she was running from something or hiding something. He thought of their last conversation, the way she had looked at him with such finality, the careful way she had said goodbye. Not see you later or take care, but goodbye as if she never expected to see him again. What had she been hiding? Victor pulled out his phone and made a call to a contact in the police department, a captain who owed him favors and knew better than to ask questions. "I need you to check something for me," Victor said. "Lena Ward. She filed for divorce last week. Now she's missing. I want to know if she filed any other legal documents in the past 6 months. Name changes, medical records, anything unusual. Give me an hour." Victor spent that hour pacing his office like a caged animal, his mind spinning through scenarios. Lena was smart, capable, resourceful. If she wanted to disappear, she could do it. But why? What was she running from? Or what was she protecting? The phone rang. "Found something interesting," the captain said. She visited a women's health clinic 4 times in the past 2 months. Last visit was 6 days ago. Victor's heart stopped. "What kind of clinic?" "The kind that does pregnancy tests and prenatal care." The world went silent. Pregnant. Lena was pregnant. Victor sat down heavily, the pieces falling into place with brutal clarity. The way she had touched her stomach sometimes when she thought he wasn't looking. The morning sickness she had blamed on stress. The fierce determination in her eyes when she signed the divorce papers. She had left to protect their child from his world. And now she was gone, somewhere in the vast machinery of America, hiding from him because she believed their child was better off without a father who lived in violence. She was wrong. Victor stood, his jaw set, his eyes hard. He would find her. He would bring her home. And he would prove to her that he could be the man their child needed, that he could build something better than the empire of blood and fear he had inherited. But first, he had to deal with the Volkovs. Because if they had any idea Lena existed, if they had taken her, or threatened her, or even breathed her name, Victor would show them exactly why the underworld feared him. He would burn their entire organization to ash and salt the earth where it stood. Lena watched the sun set over a cornfield in Nebraska, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. She was staying in a farmhouse owned by a woman she had met at a veterinary conference 3 years ago, a large animal specialist named Ruth, who asked no questions when Lena showed up on her doorstep with a suitcase and haunted eyes. Ruth had simply pulled her into a hug, shown her to the guest room, and promised her all the time she needed. Lena had been here for 2 days, trying to figure out what came next. She had money, not much, but enough to last a few months if she was careful. She had skills that could translate to work almost anywhere, and she had resolve, the kind of stubborn determination that came from growing up in foster care and learning early that survival was a choice you made every day. She would survive this too. But first, she had to grieve what she was leaving behind. Lena thought of Victor standing in that attorney's office, signing away their marriage with hands that had killed and protected in equal measure. She thought of the rare smile he gave her when she made him laugh, the way he would pull her close in the middle of the night as if afraid she would disappear. He had been right to be afraid. "You want to talk about it?" Ruth asked, settling into the rocking chair beside her with a glass of wine. Lena shook her head. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "Fair enough. But when you're ready, I'm listening." Ruth took a sip of wine. "In the meantime, I've got a cow with mastitis and a horse that needs its hooves trimmed. You interested in getting your hands dirty?" Lena managed a small smile. "Always." Work, she had learned, was a kind of salvation. It kept your hands busy and your mind focused, left no room for the thoughts that could drown you if you let them. She would work and plan and slowly build a new life from the wreckage of the old one. And when her daughter was born, she knew it was a daughter, knew it with the same bone-deep certainty she had felt when she first met Victor. She would tell her a story about her father, not the whole truth, not the violence and the darkness, but the parts that mattered. She would tell her about a man who loved so fiercely that he set the people he loved free, even when it destroyed him. That night, Lena lay in Ruth's guest bed and pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling nothing yet but knowing the promise that grew there. "I'll keep you safe," she whispered to the darkness. "Whatever it takes, I'll keep you safe." Outside, the Nebraska wind howled across the cornfields, carrying her words away into the vast American night. And in a penthouse 3 states away, Victor Hale stared at surveillance footage of empty highways and ATM cameras, searching for the ghost of a woman who had disappeared carrying his child, and swore an oath that would define the rest of his life. He would find them. And when he did, he would prove that love was the one power that could transcend even his darkest legacy. But first, blood and retribution. The Volkovs had made their move. Now it was his turn. But the response came on a Tuesday night, swift and surgical and absolute. Victor's people hit every Volkov operation simultaneously. Warehouses, gambling dens, the nightclub they used as a front for their money laundering. No one died, but the message was written in shattered glass and burning inventory. This city belongs to someone else. By dawn, the Volkov brothers were on a plane back to Moscow, their American ambitions crushed before they could take root. Marcus stood beside Victor on the roof of a building overlooking their territory, watching the last fire burn itself out. "They're gone," Marcus said. "We took minimal losses, secured the waterfront, and sent a message to anyone else thinking about expansion. Clean operation." Victor nodded, feeling nothing. The satisfaction he usually took from such victories was absent, replaced by the hollow ache that had lived in his chest since Lena left. "What about her?" he asked. Marcus hesitated. "Trail went cold in Nebraska. She's good at this, boss. Better than most professionals. She learned from the best. What do you want to do?" Victor watched the sun rise over his city, painting the buildings in shades of gold and red. Somewhere out there, Lena was building a life without him. She was protecting their child from the violence that defined him, giving their daughter, and he was certain it was a daughter, a chance at normalcy. Every instinct demanded he find her, bring her home, claim what was his. But what gave him the right? He had signed those papers. He had let her go. He had promised her a clean break, and she had taken him at his word. "We keep looking," Victor said finally. Quietly. "I don't want her harassed or frightened. I just want to know she's safe." "And if we find her?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. "Then I'll decide if love means holding on or letting go." He turned and walked toward the stairwell, leaving Marcus on the roof with the sunrise. The hunt had begun, but so had something else, a slow transformation in the heart of a man who had built everything on power and control, now learning that true strength might lie in surrender. 6 months passed. Lena gave birth to a daughter in a small clinic in Montana, assisted by a midwife named Grace who asked no questions about the absence of a father or family. She named the baby Iris Catherine Ward, after her grandmother and herself, deliberately leaving Victor's name off the birth certificate. Iris had her father's dark hair and her mother's gray eyes, and from the moment Lena held her, she knew she had made the right choice. This perfect creature deserved a life free from the constant threat of violence, free from the burden of her father's empire. Lena worked at a rural veterinary practice, living in a small apartment above a feed store, building a quiet existence one day at a time. She made friends carefully, never revealing too much, always ready to run if necessary. She thought of Victor every day, wondered if he had found someone else, if he had forgotten her, if he ever thought about the child he didn't know existed. Sometimes she imagined telling him, pictured his face when he learned he was a father, but imagination was safer than reality. In his penthouse, Victor lived like a ghost in his own life. He ran his empire with mechanical efficiency, expanded territories, negotiated treaties, eliminated threats. But the fire had gone out of him, replaced by a cold calculation that made even his most loyal people nervous. He had not forgotten Lena, could not forget her. His people had tracked her to Montana, had photographed her leaving the clinic with a baby in her arms, had sent him proof that she was alive and well, and building the peaceful life he had wanted for her. Marcus had asked if he wanted more information, names, addresses, detailed surveillance. Victor had said no. Some nights he looked at the photograph. Lena in a parking lot, smiling down at a bundle of blankets, her face radiant with a joy he had never been able to give her, and felt something crack open inside him. She had given him a daughter, their daughter, and she had made the choice to raise her alone rather than bring her into his world. He couldn't decide if that made Lena the bravest person he knew or if it meant she had never truly loved him at all. Probably both. Victor kept the photograph in his desk drawer, a secret even from himself, and tried to build a life that might someday be worthy of them. He donated to children's charities anonymously. He shut down the drug operations, focusing instead on gambling and protection, still illegal but less directly harmful. He started conversations with his captains about legitimate businesses they could transition into. Slow changes, small changes, but changes nonetheless, because someday his daughter might ask about him. And when she did, he wanted there to be something more to tell than stories of violence and fear. The months became years. Lena and Iris lived their quiet life in Montana. Victor built his empire into something that might survive his eventual exit. Neither knew that fate was waiting in the shadows, patient and implacable, ready to collide their worlds in ways that would test everything they had sacrificed. Neither knew that the clean break they had fought so hard to maintain was about to shatter. And neither knew that love, dormant but never dead, was about to prove itself stronger than all their careful plans. The story was far from over. It had barely begun. The call came on a Thursday afternoon while Lena was elbow-deep in a calving emergency at the Henderson Ranch. "Dr. Ward, you've got a phone call," Jenny, the receptionist, called from the barn entrance. "Says it's urgent." Lena looked up from where she knelt beside the laboring heifer, her arms slick with blood and amniotic fluid. "Can it wait? I'm kind of in the middle of something." "She says it's about your daughter." The world stopped. Lena was on her feet before conscious thought caught up with instinct, stripping off her gloves as she ran toward the barn office. She grabbed the phone with shaking hands. "This is Lena Ward. Miss Ward, this is Principal Morrison from Clearwater Elementary. There's been an incident with Iris." Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. "What kind of incident? Is she hurt?" "She's fine physically, but she got into an altercation with another student. I need you to come pick her up immediately." 20 minutes later, Lena sat across from Principal Morrison in an office decorated with children's artwork and motivational posters. Iris sat beside her, all 5 years of her radiating defiant fury, a purple bruise blooming on her cheekbone. "What happened?" Lena asked, keeping her voice calm even as rage burned in her chest at the sight of that bruise. Principal Morrison folded her hands on the desk. "According to witnesses, Marcus Reeves called Iris a name, I won't repeat it, and she punched him in the nose. Broke it, actually." Lena turned to her daughter. "Iris?" "He said I didn't have a daddy because my daddy didn't want me," Iris said, her chin thrust forward, tears threatening but not falling. "He said I was a bastard, so I hit him." The word landed like a physical blow. Lena closed her eyes, fighting the urge to find this Marcus Reeves and teach him exactly what happened to people who hurt her child. "Violence is never the answer," Principal Morrison said in a tone that suggested she'd given this speech many times before. "Regardless of provocation." "He broke her face," Lena interrupted, gesturing to the bruise. "Where was the supervision? Where were the teachers when this boy was assaulting my daughter with words designed to wound?" The principal shifted uncomfortably. The incident happened quickly. I want to know what consequences Marcus Reeves is facing. He's been suspended for 1 day for the name-calling. 1 day. Lena's voice went flat and cold, a tone she had learned from Victor, though she didn't realize it. And my daughter? 3 days suspension for physical violence. School policy. Lena stood, taking Iris's hand. Then I suggest you use those 3 days to review your supervision protocols and anti-bullying measures. Because if my daughter comes home with another bruise and another story about being attacked for not having a father, we're going to have a much longer conversation involving lawyers. She walked out before the principal could respond. Iris's small hand tightened hers. In the car, Lena sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm the storm of emotions threatening to tear through her carefully constructed composure. Beside her, Iris finally let the tears fall, silent and heartbroken. "Baby," Lena said softly, reaching over to wipe her daughter's cheeks. "You didn't do anything wrong by defending yourself." "I broke his nose," Iris whispered. "There was so much blood." "I know, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, even if hitting wasn't the best choice." Lena paused, choosing her next words carefully. "But Iris, what that boy said, that wasn't true. Your daddy wanted you very much." "Then where is he?" The question Lena had been dreading for 5 years, delivered with the devastating directness of childhood. "It's complicated," Lena said, the inadequate answer of parents everywhere. "You always say that." Iris turned to look at her, those gray eyes so like Lena's own, filled with a need to understand. "Why won't you tell me about him? Don't I deserve to know?" "You do. You absolutely do." Lena started the car, needing movement, needing to think. "And I'll tell you everything when you're older. But right now, all you need to know is that your daddy loved us both. And sometimes loving someone means making hard choices to keep them safe. Was he bad?" Lena thought of Victor, his gentleness with her, his capacity for violence, the way he had signed those divorce papers to set her free, even as it destroyed him. "He was complicated," she said finally, "just like all of us." They drove home in silence. Lena made hot chocolate and put on Iris's favorite movie, then retreated to the bathroom and locked the door. She sat on the edge of the tub and let herself cry for the first time since leaving Victor, great gasping sobs that left her hollow and aching. Her daughter was asking questions. Soon, those questions would evolve from curiosity into need, and Lena would have to decide how much truth a child deserved to know about her father. She pulled out her phone and opened the encrypted folder where she kept the only photos she had allowed herself to save. Victor at a charity gala, devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo. Victor asleep on the couch with a book on his chest. Victor laughing at something she had said, his whole face transformed by joy. She had thought she could build a life separate from him, but he was in Iris's face, in her fierce determination, in the way she defended herself with the same ruthless efficiency her father would have approved of. You couldn't outrun blood. The question was whether Lena should stop trying. 3,000 miles away, Victor received a different kind of phone call. "We have a problem," Marcus said without preamble. "The Kozlov organization out of Chicago is making noise about expansion. They want the Eastern Territories." Victor leaned back in his desk chair, massaging his temples. "The Kozlovs have been making noise for 2 years. What's different now? Now they have backing, Chinese syndicate, deep pockets, no patience for negotiation." Marcus paused. "They sent a message tonight, hit one of our gambling operations, killed 2 dealers, left a note." "What did the note say?" "It had your home address on it. The penthouse." Victor went very still. "They're threatening me directly?" "Looks that way. Intel says they've been watching you for months, building a profile. They know your routines, your properties, your people." Another pause. "Boss, they might know about the girl." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "Say that again." "One of our informants heard them mention a woman and a kid in Montana. They didn't have names, but they were talking about leverage, about pressure points. I think someone talked." Victor was on his feet, his mind already racing through possibilities and responses. If the Kozlovs knew about Lena and Iris, if they even suspected the connection, they would use it. That's what Victor would do in their position, find the weakness and exploit it mercilessly. "How solid is the informant?" Solid enough that I'm calling you at midnight. Pull everyone. I want security doubled on all our operations. Background checks run on everyone who's had access to my personal information in the last year, and a team in Montana within 12 hours. What kind of team? Protection, surveillance. I want eyes on them 24/7, but they don't make contact. They don't get close enough to be noticed. Lena can't know. But boss, if there's a real threat, then we handle it before it reaches them. Victor's voice was iron-wrapped in ice. The Kozlovs want to threaten me? Fine. But if they touch my family, if they even breathe in their direction, I will burn their entire organization to the ground and dance on the ashes. Understood. What about the woman? Should we warn her? Victor thought of Lena in that photograph, smiling at their daughter, finally free from the violence that had defined their relationship. Calling her now would drag her back into the world she had fought so hard to escape, but not calling her might get her killed. Not yet, he said. Let's verify the threat first. If it's real, I'll handle it personally. He ended the call and stood at his windows, looking out at the city that both made and broke him. For 5 years, he had honored Lena's choice to stay away. He had watched from a distance as she built a life for their daughter, had resisted every urge to insert himself into their world. But if someone threatened them, all bets were off. He would protect them whether they wanted his protection or not, whether it cost him everything or not, because some vows transcended divorce papers and clean breaks. By morning, Victor had mobilized half his organization. Money moved through offshore accounts, weapons were distributed, alliances were called in. He contacted every informant and ally he had in Chicago, building a picture of the Kozlov operation piece by piece. What he found made his blood run cold. Dmitry Kozlov was a different breed of criminal than Victor had dealt with before. Where Victor had rules and boundaries, lines he wouldn't cross, Kozlov operated with the moral flexibility of a sociopath. He trafficked in things Victor had always refused to touch. Human beings, children, the kind of darkness that left permanent stains. And he had apparently decided that the best way to take over Victor's territory was to destroy him personally first. They have photos, Marcus said, laying them on Victor's desk 3 days later. Of the girl and the kid. Someone's been watching them. Victor looked at the surveillance photos and felt something murderous unfold in his chest. Lena walking into her apartment building, Iris on a playground, laughing. The two of them grocery shopping, Lena's hand protectively on her daughter's shoulder. Someone had been close enough to take these photos, close enough to hurt them. When were these taken? Last week. We found them in an apartment we raided last night, belonged to one of Kozlov's advanced scouts. Marcus pointed to a notation on the back of one photo. This is what worries me. Victor flipped the photo over. Written in Cyrillic, then translated in Marcus's handwriting. Best leverage, no protection, easy target. They're planning something, Marcus said quietly, and soon. Victor gathered the photos with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. Get our team in Montana on high alert. I want armed response ready to move at a moment's notice. And Marcus? If anyone gets within 50 feet of them with bad intentions, I want them disappeared, quietly, completely, as if they never existed. You're going to war over a woman who left you. I'm going to war over my family, Victor corrected. There's a difference. You still haven't told her. No. Say, you planning to? Victor looked at the photo of Iris on the playground, this child he had never met who had his eyes and her mother's smile, and felt his heart break and harden simultaneously. If I tell her, she'll run again, deeper this time, where I might not find her. He met Marcus's gaze. I can't protect them if I can't find them. So you're going to protect them without their knowledge or consent? Yes. Marcus shook his head but didn't argue. He had been with Victor long enough to know when a decision was final. For what it's worth, Marcus said at the door, I think you're doing the right thing, even if she never knows it. Victor didn't answer. Right and wrong had become fluid concepts the moment he realized someone was targeting his family. All that mattered now was keeping them alive. In Montana, Lena felt the change before she understood it. Small things at first. A car she didn't recognize parked on her street 3 days in a row. A man in a coffee shop who watched her a little too intently. The feeling of eyes on her back when she walked Iris to school. She told herself she was being paranoid, that 5 years of peaceful anonymity had made her soft, that not every stranger was a threat. But instincts honed during her time with Victor whispered otherwise. On Saturday morning, she took Iris to the park and positioned herself where she could see all the entrances. She watched the other parents, the joggers, the dog walkers, looking for anything out of place. "Mama, you're doing it again," Iris said, tugging on her sleeve. "Doing what, baby?" "Looking at everyone like they might be bad guys." Lena forced herself to relax, to smile. "Sorry, just being careful." "You've been careful a lot lately." Iris tilted her head, studying her mother with unsettling perception. "Are you scared of something?" "No," Lena lied. "Just want to keep my favorite girls safe." Iris seemed to accept this and ran off toward the swings. Lena watched her go, then let her eyes drift across the park again. That's when she saw him. A man in a dark jacket standing near the tree line, too far away to see clearly, but close enough that she could feel his attention focused on her daughter. He wasn't watching the playground the way parents did, with fond distraction. He was watching with the kind of focused intensity that set off every alarm bell Lena had. She stood, her heart rate spiking, and walked quickly toward Iris. "Time to go, baby." "But we just got here." "I know, but I forgot I have to work this afternoon." Lena took Iris's hand, pulling her gently but firmly toward the parking lot. "We'll come back tomorrow." She glanced back at the tree line. The man was gone. Lena drove home checking her mirrors every 30 seconds, taking random turns to see if anyone followed. No one did. By the time they reached their apartment, she had almost convinced herself she had imagined the whole thing. Almost. That night, after Iris was asleep, Lena did something she had sworn she would never do. She opened her laptop and searched for Victor Hale. The results were disturbingly sparse. A few mentions in business journals, some charitable donations listed in society pages, but nothing personal, nothing recent. It was as if he had learned to erase himself from public record, or as if someone had done it for him. She tried a different search. Victor Hale Criminal Organization. Still nothing useful. Just old newspaper articles about suspected racketeering, investigations that went nowhere. The digital ghost of a man who operated in shadows. Lena closed the laptop, her hand shaking slightly. If she was in danger, if someone from Victor's world had found her, she had two choices. Run again, deeper and farther, changing everything including Iris's name and identity, or reach out to the one person who could protect them. The man she had spent 5 years avoiding, the man whose world she had fled to protect their daughter. The father Iris deserved to know. Lena stood and walked to Iris's room, watching her daughter sleep with one arm flung over her head, her dark hair spread across the pillow. She looked so much like Victor in this moment that Lena's chest ached with the weight of it. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the sleeping child. "I thought I could keep you safe by keeping you away from him. I thought that was what love looked like." But maybe she had been wrong. Maybe love looked like asking for help, even when pride screamed against it. Maybe love looked like letting Victor be a father, even if it meant returning to the world she had escaped. Lena pulled out her phone and stared at it for a long moment. She had deleted Victor's number years ago, had destroyed every way he could contact her, but she knew someone who would have it. Sarah, her sister. The only person who knew where she had gone. Lena composed a text. "I need Victor's number. Don't ask why. Please." The response came within minutes. "Are you okay? What's wrong?" "I'm fine. I just need to talk to him." "Lena, what's going on?" "Please, Sarah, I'll explain later. I just need his number." A long pause, then a phone number appeared on her screen, followed by, "Be careful and call me when you can." Lena saved the number under a false name, her finger hovering over the call button. 5 years of silence. 5 years of carefully maintained distance. One phone call would shatter it all. But if it kept Iris safe, Lena would shatter the entire world. She pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice she had tried to forget but never could answered. "Who is this?" Deep and controlled and achingly familiar, Victor's voice hit her like a physical force. Lena opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The words tangled in her throat, 5 years of absence and longing and fear condensing into paralysis. "I can hear you breathing," Victor said, his tone shifting. "Lena?" She closed her eyes. "How did you know?" Because I've been waiting for this call for 5 years. A pause filled with everything they hadn't said. Are you safe? I don't know, she admitted. That's why I'm calling. Tell me everything. So she did. The feeling of being watched, the man at the park, the instinct that something was wrong even if she couldn't prove it. Victor listened without interrupting, and Lena could almost hear the machinery of his mind working through possibilities and responses. You were right to call, he said when she finished. There's a threat. A new organization trying to move into my territory, and they've apparently decided the best way to do that is through leverage. Through us, Lena said, her voice hollow. Through you. But Lena, listen to me carefully. You're not alone in this. I've had protection on you for the past week, ever since I learned about the threat. She went cold. You what? I have a team watching you. They're good, trained, invisible, unless they need not to be. The man you saw at the park, he wasn't one of the bad guys. He was mine, making sure nobody got close enough to hurt Iris. Anger flared hot and immediate. You've been having us followed for a week without telling me? Would you have accepted my help if I'd asked? That's not the point. It's exactly the point. His voice remained calm, maddeningly reasonable. You left to protect our daughter from my world. I respected that choice for 5 years. But now my world has found you anyway, and I'm not going to let some pride-fueled principle get you killed. Our daughter, Lena repeated, latching onto the words. You know about her? I've known since the beginning. Did you really think I wouldn't have someone check on you, that I wouldn't make sure you were safe? A pause. I have a photo of her. From when she was 6 months old. You were teaching her to laugh. Lena sat down hard on the edge of her bed, emotions warring inside her. Violation and relief. Anger and gratitude. The terrible knowledge that Victor had been watching over them all this time, protecting them from a distance, honoring her choice even as it destroyed him. Why didn't you contact me, she asked. Because you asked me not to. Because you needed to be free. Because I loved you enough to let you go. His voice dropped lower. But I never stopped watching, never stopped making sure you were safe, and I never stopped loving you or our daughter. Tears ran down Lena's face, silent and unstoppable. I don't know what to do, Victor. I don't know how to protect her from this. You don't have to. That's my job. The authority in his voice was absolute. Pack a bag. My team will come to you within the hour. They'll take you somewhere safe while I deal with the Kozlovs. And then what, we hide forever? We uproot Iris's entire life because of your enemies? No. Then I eliminate the threat, and you get to decide what happens next. He paused. If you want to come back, I'll make sure you're protected. If you want to disappear again, I'll help you do it properly this time, where no one can find you. And if you want me to be part of Iris's life, I'll do whatever it takes to be the father she deserves. Just like that? Just like that? You have all the power here, Lena. You always did. She wiped her eyes, trying to think through the fear and exhaustion and overwhelming relief of not being alone in this anymore. I need to think about what's best for Iris. I know. And while you're thinking, I need you to trust me to keep you both alive. His voice softened. Can you do that? Can you trust me one more time? Lena looked toward Iris's room, thought of her daughter sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger circling closer. Yes, she said finally. I can trust you. Good. My team will be there in 45 minutes. Pack light, just essentials. And Lena, thank you for calling, for letting me help. Victor? Yes? She looks like you, our daughter. She has your eyes and your stubborn determination and your capacity to protect the people she loves. Lena's voice broke. She's extraordinary. The silence on the other end was long and weighted with everything they had lost and might still find again. I can't wait to meet her, Victor said finally, and Lena heard the tears he wouldn't let fall. They ended the call. Lena sat in the darkness, holding the phone that still felt warm from his voice, and realized that the clean break they had fought so hard for was about to become the messiest reunion imaginable. But if it kept Iris safe, if it gave their daughter a chance to know her father, if it meant they could finally stop running from the truth, then maybe it was worth breaking everything all over again. She stood and went to pack their lives into suitcases for the second time in 5 years, this time heading toward danger instead of away from it. toward the man she had loved enough to leave and now needed enough to return to, toward whatever came next. The knock came exactly 45 minutes later, soft and precise. Lena opened the door to find a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an easy smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, looking more like a soccer mom than a bodyguard, which Lena supposed was the point. "Dr. Ward, I'm Sophia. We spoke on the phone earlier." The woman glanced past Lena into the apartment. "Is your daughter awake?" "Not yet. I haven't told her we're leaving." "Probably better that way. Less questions, less stress." Sophia stepped inside, her eyes scanning the space with professional efficiency. "We have about 20 minutes before my partner brings the car around. The plan is to make this look like a normal morning departure. Nothing that would alert surveillance if anyone's watching." "Are they? Watching?" "We haven't seen active surveillance on your building tonight, but that doesn't mean it's not there." Sophia moved to the window, checking the street below. "The Kozlovs are careful. They use disposable personnel, rotate positions. Makes them hard to track." Lena felt her stomach twist. How much danger are we actually in? Sophia turned from the window, and for the first time her expression softened with something like sympathy. "Honest answer? If Victor hadn't put protection on you when he did, I think they would have made a move already. But now that we're aware and mobilized, they'll pull back, reassess. Gives us time to get you somewhere secure." "Where are we going?" "Better if you don't know yet. Less to worry about, less to accidentally reveal if someone asks." Sophia checked her watch. "Why don't you wake your daughter? We need to leave in 15. Lena walked to Iris's room, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was about to do. She had spent 5 years building a normal life for her daughter, and now she was about to tear it apart because of dangers Iris couldn't understand and a father she'd never met. She sat on the edge of the bed and gently shook Iris's shoulder. "Baby, wake up." Iris stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Mama, what time is it?" "Early, I know, but we need to go somewhere for a little while." "Where?" Iris sat up, instantly alert in that way children had when they sensed something was wrong. "It's a surprise," Lena said, hating the lie, but knowing the truth was too complicated for a 5-year-old at dawn. "An adventure. But we need to pack quickly and quietly, okay?" "Is something bad happening?" Lena smoothed her daughter's hair, marveling at how perceptive she was. "Something complicated is happening, but Mama's going to keep you safe, I promise." "Is it about my daddy?" The question landed like a punch. Lena stared at her daughter, this small person who seemed to sense the shape of truths before they were spoken. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you've been sad a lot lately, and you only get really sad when I ask about him." Iris's gray eyes, so much like Lena's own, searched her mother's face. "Is he in trouble? Is that why we have to leave?" Lena made a decision in that moment, one she hoped wouldn't haunt her later. "Your daddy is trying to help us, baby. He's making sure we stay safe." "So he does want me?" "He's always wanted you. He's always loved you, even when he couldn't be here." Iris processed this with the seriousness of someone much older. "Okay, then I'll pack fast." 20 minutes later, they were in a black SUV with tinted windows, Sophia driving, and a silent man named James in the passenger seat. Iris sat beside Lena in the back, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit and watching Montana disappear through the window. "Where are we going?" she asked again. "Somewhere safe," Sophia said from the front seat, her voice kind but firm. "Your mama will explain more when we get there." The drive took 6 hours, winding through mountains and small towns until they reached a property that looked like a luxury ranch retreat. High fences disguised as rustic barriers, security cameras hidden in trees, the kind of defensive setup that looked welcoming but could become a fortress in seconds. "This is one of Victor's properties," Sophia explained as they pulled through the gates. "It's not in his name, not traceable to him or his business. As far as anyone knows, it's owned by a tech CEO who's never here." The house itself was beautiful, all exposed wood beams and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a pristine lake. Iris pressed her nose to the car window, her earlier anxiety replaced by wonder. "Mama, look! There's a dock and everything!" "I see it, baby." Inside, the house was furnished with comfortable elegance, the kind of space that felt lived in despite probably being empty most of the year. Sophia gave them a quick tour while James checked the perimeter. "There are 4 bedrooms upstairs. You and Iris can take the master suite. It has an attached bathroom and its own sitting area. Sophia opened doors as she spoke, showing them a kitchen stocked with food, a living room with books and games, everything they might need for an extended stay. The property is secure, but I need you to stay inside unless James or I are with you. No going down to the lake alone, no wandering the grounds. How long will we be here? Lena asked. As long as it takes for Victor to handle the situation in the city. And if something goes wrong? If they find us here? Sophia met her gaze steadily. Then James and I do what we're trained to do, but it won't come to that. Victor's very good at what he does. After Sophia left them to settle in, Lena stood at the window of the master bedroom, watching Iris explore the sitting area with her rabbit tucked under one arm. The lake beyond reflected the late afternoon sun, peaceful and deceptively safe. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Are you settled? Lena saved the number under Victor's name and replied, Yes. Thank you. How is she? Lena looked at Iris, who had found a collection of books on a shelf and was now absorbed in one with pictures of horses. She's resilient, handling it better than I am. She gets that from you. Lena felt tears prick her eyes at the simple acknowledgement. When will I see you? When it's safe. I don't want to lead anyone to you, but Lena, we need to talk about after, about what happens when this is over. I know. I want to meet her, our daughter. I want to be her father, if you'll let me. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of 5 years of choices and consequences pressing down on her. She asked about you this morning, asked if you were in trouble. What did you tell her? That you're trying to help us, that you've always wanted her. A long pause, then, thank you for telling her that, for calling me, for trusting me to do this. Don't make me regret it. I won't. I promise you, Lena, I will fix this. And then we'll figure out the rest together. The conversation ended there. Lena set the phone aside and joined her daughter in the sitting area, pulling her close and breathing in the scent of her hair, this precious person who was about to have her world expanded and complicated by the truth. In the city, Victor was waging a different kind of war. He sat across from Dmitry Kozlov in a neutral restaurant, the kind of place where criminal negotiations happened under the guise of business lunches. Marcus stood behind Victor's chair, silent and watchful. Two of Kozlov's men flanked their boss, equally alert. Dmitry Kozlov was younger than Victor had expected, maybe 40, with the kind of expensive grooming that spoke of new money trying to look old. He smiled too easily, like a man who had never faced real consequences. Mr. Hale, I'm glad you agreed to meet. You threatened my family, Victor said flatly. That's not something I ignore. Threatened? Kozlov looked genuinely surprised. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I merely gathered information. Due diligence, you understand. When entering a new market, one must know the players. Information gathering doesn't include surveillance photos with notations about leverage and easy targets. Kozlov's smile faltered. Ah, you found those. I found a lot of things, including 3 of your people who thought following a woman and child was a good career move. Victor leaned forward slightly. They won't be following anyone anymore. The threat hung in the air between them. Marcus shifted behind Victor, a subtle reminder of the force backing those words. You've made your point, Kozlov said carefully. Perhaps we started off on the wrong foot. There's no foot to start on. You're not expanding into my territory. You're not touching my operations, and you're sure as hell never going near my family again. Victor's voice was cold and absolute. You have 48 hours to leave the Eastern Corridor. After that, anyone associated with your organization found here will be considered an act of war. That's unreasonable. We've invested significant resources. Not my problem. You made a tactical error targeting civilians. In my world, that crosses a line. Victor stood. 48 hours, Kozlov. I suggest you use them wisely. He walked out without waiting for a response, Marcus falling into step beside him. Think he'll actually leave? So Marcus asked once they were in the car. No, he's too proud and too stupid. Victor looked out the window at the city streaming past. But now, when we move against him, we can say we tried diplomacy first. When do we move? Tonight. I want every Kozlov operation in this city shut down by morning. No casualties if possible, but I want the message clear. They're not welcome here. And if Kozlov retaliates against the woman and kid, he won't get the chance. I'm going to Montana tomorrow. I'll stay there until this is resolved. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're going to her? I'm going to protect my family. There's a difference. Is there? Victor didn't answer. The truth was more complicated than he wanted to admit. Yes, he was going to protect Lena and Iris. But he was also going because 5 years of distance had left him hollow, and the chance to finally meet his daughter, to see Lena again, was something he couldn't resist even if wisdom said he should. The operation that night was surgical and thorough. Victor's people hit every Kozlov asset simultaneously: warehouses, front businesses, safe houses. They confiscated inventory, disabled operations, and sent a clear message without spilling blood. By dawn, Kozlov's organization in the Eastern Corridor was effectively neutered. But Victor knew it wasn't over. Wounded predators were the most dangerous kind. He boarded his private plane at noon, Marcus staying behind to manage the fallout. The flight to Montana felt simultaneously too long and too short. Victor spent it staring at the photograph he kept in his wallet, the one of Lena and Iris that he had looked at every day for 5 years. Soon, it wouldn't be just a photograph anymore. The thought terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. Sophia met him at the small regional airport, her expression carefully neutral. How are they? Victor asked as they drove toward the safe house. The kid's adjusting well, thinks it's an adventure. The mother's more stressed, trying to keep things normal. Sophia glanced at him. She hasn't told Iris who you are yet. I know. That's her call to make. What's your plan here, boss? You going to play bodyguard, or are you going to tell that little girl you're her father? Victor watched the mountains roll past. I'm going to do whatever Lena thinks is best. This isn't about what I want. Respectfully, sir, that's bullshit. You've wanted this for 5 years. And I'll wait 5 more if that's what it takes for Iris to be ready. He met Sophia's eyes. I'm not here to force myself into their lives. I'm here to keep them safe and maybe, if I'm lucky, earn the right to be part of their family. Sophia smiled slightly. You're really in love with her, aren't you? After all this time. After all this time, Victor confirmed quietly. The safe house appeared through the trees, peaceful and perfect in the late afternoon light. Victor felt his heart rate increase as they pulled up, a nervousness he hadn't experienced since he was young and uncertain. He was about to meet his daughter. He was about to see the woman he loved for the first time in 5 years. And he had absolutely no idea what to say. Sophia parked and turned to him. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. They walked to the door together. Sophia knocked twice, then used her key to let them in. Lena stood in the living room, and the sight of her hit Victor like a physical blow. She looked older, tired, beautiful in ways the photograph hadn't captured. Her hair was longer, her face thinner, but her eyes were the same gray that haunted his dreams. Victor, she breathed. Lena. They stood there, the years and distance and all the things they hadn't said creating a chasm neither knew how to cross. Then Iris appeared from the kitchen, a glass of juice in her hand, and the entire world stopped. She had his eyes, his dark hair. But everything else was Lena. The shape of her face, the way she tilted her head when curious, the quiet intensity of her gaze. Iris looked at Victor with the frank assessment of childhood. Are you the one keeping us safe? Victor's throat closed. He managed to nod. Good. Mama's been worried. Iris took a sip of her juice. I'm Iris. Who are you? Victor looked at Lena, the question clear in his eyes. Lena's expression was conflicted, torn between truth and protection, between what Iris deserved to know and what she could handle. This is Victor, Lena said finally. He's an old friend, someone I trust very much. Okay. Iris seemed to accept this. Do you like horses? I found a book about them. I do, Victor said, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. I'd love to hear about them. Iris set down her juice and retrieved the book, settling onto the couch and patting the space beside her with the unselfconscious command of someone who expected to be obeyed. Victor sat, and his daughter, curled up next to him and began explaining the differences between various horse breeds with serious enthusiasm. Lena watched from across the room, her hand pressed to her mouth, tears sliding down her face. Sophia touched her arm gently. I'll give you guys some privacy. James and I will be in the guest house if you need anything." After she left, Lena sat in the chair opposite the couch, watching Victor listen to Iris with an attention and focus that suggested she was revealing the secrets of the universe instead of describing Appaloosas versus Arabians. When Iris finally ran out of horse facts and went to refill her juice, Victor looked at Lena with eyes that held 5 years of longing. "She's perfect," he said simply. "She is." Lena wiped her eyes. "Victor, we need to talk about—" "Not yet." He stood, moving closer but not touching. "Right now, just let me be here with you both. The complicated conversations can wait until she's asleep." "You're staying?" "If that's okay, Sophia can take the guest house. I'll take the couch. I'm not leaving you unprotected." "That's not what I meant. I meant—" Lena struggled for words. "Are you staying in our lives after this is over?" Victor looked toward the kitchen where Iris was singing softly to herself as she poured more juice. "If you'll have me," he said quietly. "If you think I can be the father she needs. I want to try, Lena. I want to be part of her life, part of your lives, in whatever way you'll allow. It won't be easy. She'll have questions about why you weren't there before, about what you do, about everything. I know, and I'll answer them honestly. Age appropriately, but honestly." He finally looked at her again. "I made a lot of mistakes. Let you go when I should have fought for you, stayed away when I should have found a way to be present. But I'm here now, and I'm not making those mistakes again." Iris returned, climbing back onto the couch with her juice. "Can we watch a movie? Mama said we can't go outside, so we should do inside things." "Sure, baby," Lena said. "What do you want to watch?" "Something with animals. And can Victor watch too?" Lena and Victor's eyes met over their daughter's head. 5 years of separation and regret and love that had never quite died shimmering between them. "Victor can definitely watch too," Lena said softly. They settled in, Iris between them on the couch, utterly content to have both adults' attention focused on the animated movie about a lost penguin. Halfway through, she fell asleep with her head on Victor's arm, her small hand curled trustingly in Lena's. Victor looked down at his daughter, this miracle he had helped create but never thought he'd get to know, and felt something fundamental shift in his chest. Every decision he had ever made, every violent choice and moral compromise had led to this moment, and if he could go back and change it all, he wouldn't, because it had given him her. "Thank you," he whispered to Lena across their sleeping child. "For what?" "For calling, for trusting me, for giving me this." He gestured to Iris. "I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," Lena agreed quietly, "but she deserves to know her father, and I was wrong to keep you from her for so long." "You were protecting her. I was protecting myself, from having to share her, from having to face what I felt for you, from the complicated reality of loving someone whose world I couldn't accept." Lena brushed Iris's hair back from her forehead. "But she asked about you this morning, and the pain in her voice when she wondered if her daddy wanted her. I couldn't do that to her anymore. I've always wanted her, both of you. I know that now. I think I always knew it, but it was easier to believe the lie." They sat in silence, the movie playing unwatched, their daughter breathing softly between them. Finally, Victor spoke again. "What happens after this? After the threat is handled and you're safe to go back to your life?" "I don't know," Lena admitted. "I can't go back to Montana now. Even if we eliminate the Kozlovs, there will be others. Your enemies will always know about us. Not if we do this right. I can create new identities for you both. Better ones, untraceable. Set you up somewhere no one will find you. And you? I'll visit when it's safe. Be part of Iris's life from a distance. Whatever arrangement you're comfortable with." Lena looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the man behind the criminal, the father behind the violence. "Or," she said slowly, "we could stop running." Victor went still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe I was wrong about all of it, about keeping Iris from you, about thinking we could only be safe apart, about believing you couldn't change." She paused. "You've been protecting us for 5 years without asking for anything in return. You built an empire, but you're trying to make it legitimate. You're not the same man I left." "I'm still dangerous, Lena. I still have enemies. That hasn't changed." "No. But I'm not the same woman who left either. I'm stronger now. And Iris deserves to grow up knowing her father, even if it means accepting the complicated reality of who you are. Hope bloomed in Victor's chest, fragile and terrifying. Are you saying you want to come back? To be a family? I'm saying I want to try. I want Iris to know you. I want to see if we can build something that works for all three of us. Lena's voice shook slightly. I want to stop being afraid of loving you. Victor carefully extracted his arm from beneath Iris's head and moved around to Lena's side of the couch. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. I will spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. I will protect you both with everything I have. And I will never, ever make you regret giving me this chance. Lena leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll let me be part of the decisions, about safety, about Iris, about all of it. No more protecting me from information. We do this together or not at all. Together, Victor agreed. Always. They stayed like that, foreheads touching, hands clasped, while their daughter slept peacefully between them and the future unfolded with terrifying possibility. Outside, night fell over the Montana lake. In the city, Victor's people worked to dismantle the Kozlov threat. And in a safe house surrounded by mountains and guarded by loyal soldiers, a family that had been broken was beginning to heal. The road ahead would be complicated. There would be difficult conversations and painful adjustments and moments of doubt. But for the first time in 5 years, Victor allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could have both. He could have his empire and his family. He could be a criminal and a father. He could love and be loved in return. All he had to do was survive what came next. The attack came 3 days later, just before dawn. Victor was asleep on the couch when Sophia burst through the door, her weapon drawn, her face tight with controlled urgency. We've got incoming. Multiple vehicles, heavily armed. They bypassed the perimeter sensors somehow. Victor was on his feet instantly, every nerve alive with the adrenaline of someone who had survived by trusting his instincts. How many? At least 8 that we can see. Could be more. Sophia moved to the window, peering through the blinds. They're positioning for an assault, not a siege. They want in fast. Get Lena and Iris to the safe room, now. Victor took the stairs 3 at a time, his mind already calculating exits and defensive positions. He reached the master bedroom and knocked hard. Lena, we need to move. She opened the door immediately, already awake. Iris clutched against her chest with one arm. The child was still half asleep, confused and frightened by the sudden urgency. What's happening? Lena asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The Kozlovs found us. Sophia's going to take you to the safe room. Victor stepped aside to let Sophia guide them out. It's reinforced, secure. You'll be protected there. What about you? I'll hold them off until backup arrives. Victor, there's no time to argue. You need to go now. He caught Lena's hand, squeezed it once. I'll come for you when it's clear, I promise. Iris began to cry, the kind of scared, confused tears that broke something in Victor's chest. He crouched down to her level, smoothing her hair back with a gentleness that contradicted everything happening around them. Hey, brave girl, remember that story about the penguin who got lost? He was scared too, but he kept going until he found his way home. I don't want you to get lost, Iris sobbed. I won't. I promise I'll find you again. Victor kissed her forehead, the first and possibly last time he would get to do such a simple fatherly thing. Now go with Sophia. She's going to keep you and Mama safe. Sophia led them away, and Victor watched until they disappeared down the hallway toward the hidden safe room built into the foundation. Then he turned to James, who had appeared with an arsenal of weapons. How long until backup? 20 minutes. Maybe less if they push it. We need to hold for 20 minutes then. But Victor took the rifle James offered him, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. They'll come through the main entrance first, probably a secondary team through the back. We funnel them, make them pay for every inch. You sure you want to do this, boss? We could retreat, regroup, and leave them time to find Lena and Iris? No, we end this here. The first explosion took out the front door in a shower of splinters and smoke. Victor was ready, positioned behind an overturned table in the living room with clear sightlines to the entrance. He didn't fire immediately, letting them commit to entry, counting bodies. 6 men rushed in, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Victor dropped two before they even realized where the shots came from. James took out another from his position near the kitchen. The remaining three scattered, seeking cover, and the elegant living room became a war zone of gunfire and shouted Russian. Victor moved with the cold efficiency of someone who had done this before, who had survived countless situations just like this by being faster and more ruthless than his enemies. He reloaded, repositioned, fired again. Another body fell. But they kept coming. The back door exploded inward, and suddenly Victor was fighting on two fronts. James held the kitchen approach while Victor covered the living room, their movements synchronized from years of working together. Minutes bled into each other, measured in gunshots and blood spatter. Victor took a bullet to the shoulder, felt it punch through muscle but kept moving, kept firing. Pain was something to process later after his family was safe. One of the attackers made it to the stairs, heading for the bedrooms. Victor shot him in the back without hesitation, watched him tumble down the steps in a graceless heap. No mercy. Not when they threatened what mattered most. The firefight lasted 12 minutes, though it felt like hours. When the last attacker fell, Victor did a quick count. 11 bodies, all Kozlov's people, none of his own. But the house was destroyed, windows shattered, walls pocked with bullet holes, furniture splintered. And more importantly, the attack meant Kozlov knew exactly where they were. James? Status? I'm good. You're bleeding. Flesh wound. Check the perimeter. Make sure there aren't more waiting. Victor moved toward the safe room, his shoulders screaming protest. I need to get them out of here before Kozlov sends reinforcements. He descended the stairs to the basement, his hand leaving bloody prints on the railing. The safe room door was solid steel, designed to withstand explosives. Victor knocked the specific pattern that signaled all clear. Lena, it's me. It's over. The door opened a crack, and Sophia peered out, her weapon still raised. When she saw it was really Victor, she opened it wider. Lena stood behind her, Iris wrapped so tightly in her arms that the child's face was buried against her mother's shoulder. Both of them were shaking. Is anyone hurt? Victor asked. We're fine, you're not. Lena's eyes fixed on the blood soaking his shirt. Let me look at that. Later. We need to evacuate now. Kozlov knows this location, he'll send more people. Victor looked at Sophia. Take them to the secondary safe house, the one in Colorado. Don't stop, don't take chances. Assume you're being followed until proven otherwise. What about you? Sophia asked. I'm going back to the city. This ends tonight. Victor, you're injured, Lena protested. You need medical attention. I need to finish this before anyone else gets hurt. He met her eyes, saw the fear and anger and love warring there. I won't let him threaten you again, any of you. Then let me come with you, Lena said suddenly. Let me help. Absolutely not. Why? Because I'm not capable? I've been patching up gunshot wounds since before I met you. I can be useful. Because if something happens to me, Iris needs her mother. Victor's voice was firm, final. Sophia will keep you safe. Trust her like you trust me. He turned to leave, but Iris's voice stopped him. Are you my daddy? The question fell into the destroyed house like a stone into still water, creating ripples that touched everything. Victor turned back slowly. Iris had lifted her head from Lena's shoulder and was looking at him with those eyes that were his own, her face streaked with tears, but her gaze steady and demanding. Iris, baby, Lena started, but Iris interrupted. Mama told me my daddy loved me and was trying to help us. That's you, isn't it? You're the one keeping us safe. Victor looked at Lena, who nodded permission through her own tears. He crossed back to them, kneeling despite the pain in his shoulder so he could meet his daughter's eyes at her level. Yes, he said simply. I'm your daddy. Why weren't you there before? The question every absent parent dreaded, asked with the brutal honesty of childhood that demanded truth over comfort. Because I thought keeping you safe meant staying away. I thought my world was too dangerous for you and your mama. Victor's voice roughened. I was wrong about that. I should have found a way to be there, to be part of your life. I'm sorry I wasn't. Iris considered this with that serious expression she got when processing important information. Are you going to stay now? If your mama lets me, if you want me to, I'm going to try very hard to be the daddy you deserve. Even though bad people want to hurt you? Especially because of that. Because protecting you is the most important thing I'll ever do. He reached out slowly, letting her decide if she wanted the contact. Is it okay if I hug you? Iris nodded, and Victor pulled his daughter into his arms for the first time, feeling her small body pressed against his chest, her arms wrapping around his neck with surprising strength. She smelled like Lena's shampoo in childhood, and everything good he had ever wanted to protect. I love you, he whispered into her hair. I've loved you since before you were born. I know that doesn't make up for not being there, but it's true. I love you too, Daddy, Iris said, and the word hit Victor harder than any bullet ever had. Lena was crying openly now, watching the two of them together, this moment she had feared and hoped for, in equal measure finally happening amid violence and chaos. Victor reluctantly released Iris, standing with effort. I have to go now, but I promise I'm coming back. Can you be brave a little longer? Iris nodded, her small face set with determination. Will you teach me about horses when you come back? Real ones, not just book ones. Absolutely, as many horses as you want. Victor looked at Lena. Take care of our girl. You come back to us, Lena said fiercely. Don't you dare die being noble. You come back and we figure out how to be a family. Properly this time. I will. I promise. He kissed her then, quick and desperate, tasting salt tears and 5 years of longing. Then he forced himself to turn away, to leave them in Sophia's capable hands while he went to end the threat that had nearly destroyed everything. The drive back to the city was a blur of pain and planning. James drove while Victor made calls, mobilizing every asset he had. By the time they reached the outskirts, he had assembled a small army. Marcus met them at a warehouse on the edge of Victor's territory, his face grim when he saw the blood. You need a hospital. I need Kozlov dead. Hospital can wait. Boss, you've lost a lot of blood. Then we'd better work fast. Victor moved to the table where Marcus had spread out intelligence reports and surveillance photos. Where is he? Holed up in a hotel downtown, top floor, surrounded by his remaining people. He knows we're coming. Marcus pointed to the building layout. It's defensible, hard to assault without significant casualties. I don't care about casualties, I care about ending this tonight. Victor studied the plans, his tactical mind working through approaches despite the fog of blood loss. We hit them with everything. No warning, no mercy. And Kozlov doesn't leave that building alive. Victor, Marcus's voice was careful. What you're talking about is a massacre. The kind that brings heat from law enforcement, from other organizations. Are you sure? He tried to kill my family. He sent armed men to a house where my daughter was sleeping. Victor's eyes were cold and absolute. I don't care what it costs. He dies tonight. The assault began at midnight. Victor's people surrounded the hotel, evacuating civilians under the guise of a gas leak, clearing the building floor by floor until only the top level remained. Kozlov's men tried to hold the stairwells, but they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. Victor led the final push personally, despite Marcus's protests, despite the blood still seeping through the temporary bandage on his shoulder. He needed to look Kozlov in the eyes when this ended. They breached the penthouse suite in a coordinated strike, flashbangs and suppressive fire creating chaos. Kozlov's remaining guards fell quickly, professionals overwhelmed by superior numbers and tactics. Kozlov himself tried to run, making for a secondary exit, but Victor was faster. He caught the younger man by the collar and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack the plaster. You made a mistake, Victor said quietly, his voice deadly calm. You threatened my family. Kozlov laughed, blood running from his split lip. You think killing me changes anything? There will always be someone else. Your world doesn't allow for happy families, Hale. You can't protect them forever. Watch me. Victor pulled his sidearm and pressed it against Kozlov's forehead. The other man's eyes widened, bravado crumbling in the face of imminent death. Wait, we can negotiate. I have money. You tried to hurt my daughter. There's no negotiation for that. Victor pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the penthouse, final and absolute. Kozlov's body slumped to the floor, and with it, the immediate threat to Victor's family ended. Marcus appeared at Victor's shoulder. It's done. Building secure. Kozlov's people are either dead or running. We won. Get me to a hospital, Victor said, suddenly aware of how much pain he was in, how close to collapse he was. And someone call Lena. Tell her it's over. Tell her I'm coming home. He made it 3 steps before his legs gave out. Victor woke in a private hospital room, sunlight streaming through blinds and the beeping of medical equipment creating a rhythmic backdrop. His shoulder was properly bandaged now, IV lines running into his arm, the fog of pain medication making everything soft around the edges. Lena sat in the chair beside his bed, her head resting on her arms near his hand, asleep in that uncomfortable position people only managed when they were exhausted beyond caring. Victor shifted, trying not to wake her, but her eyes opened immediately. For a moment she just looked at him, taking in that he was alive and conscious and here. "You're awake," she said unnecessarily. "How long?" 2 days. You lost a lot of blood, needed surgery. The doctors said you were lucky." Lena sat up, wincing as her back protested. "Iris is fine. Sophia has her at a hotel nearby. She asks about you every hour." "And you? Are you okay?" "I watched the man I love nearly die protecting us. I'm processing." Lena took his hand, careful of the IV. "The doctors say you'll make a full recovery, but you need to rest. Actually rest. Not pretend to rest while running your empire from a hospital bed." "Kozlov?" "Dead, along with most of his organization. Marcus says the remaining members scattered back to Chicago. The threat's over, Mike." She paused. "But there will be others, won't there? This is what your life is. What our life will be if Iris and I stay." Victor closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that truth. "Yes, I can minimize the danger, protect you better, keep you as far from it as possible. But I can't promise there won't be threats. I can't promise perfect safety. No one can promise that. Normal people get sick, have accidents, face random violence." Lena's grip on his hand tightened. "But at least with you, we face it together. And Iris gets to have her father." "You're sure? Because I would understand if you wanted to leave again. If this proved that—" "Victor." Lena leaned forward, her gray eyes intense. "I'm sure. We're staying. We're going to figure out how to make this work, how to be a family despite the complications. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll let us in, all the way. No more protecting us from information, no more making decisions alone because you think it's safer. We're partners in this, or we're nothing." "Partners," Victor agreed. "I promise." "Good. Because your daughter is going to have questions, and we need to decide together how to answer them. About what you do, about the danger, about all of it. What have you told her so far?" "That her daddy has a complicated job that sometimes makes people angry. That he does his best to help people, but not everyone agrees with his methods." Lena smiled slightly. "She asked if you were like Batman." Despite everything, Victor laughed. "What did you say?" "I said Batman was richer and had better gadgets, but you were braver. Thank you for that, for all of this." Victor brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "I know this isn't the life you wanted." "No, but it's the life I'm choosing, the life we're building together." Lena stood, leaning over to kiss his forehead. "Now rest. Doctor's orders. I'm going to get Iris and bring her here. She's been desperate to see you." "Lena?" She paused at the door. "I love you. I never stopped." "I know, I never stopped either. That was always the problem." She smiled, and it reached her eyes for the first time in what felt like years. But maybe now it can be the solution instead. She left, and Victor lay in the hospital bed feeling something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not just relief or victory or even love, though all those were present. Something deeper. Hope. The kind of hope that came from second chances and narrow escapes, and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could have both the empire and the family. That he could be both the criminal the world feared and the father his daughter needed. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more threats, more violence, more complicated negotiations between the life he had built and the life he wanted to build. But with Lena beside him and Iris counting on him, Victor thought he might finally have a reason to try. 20 minutes later, the door burst open and Iris ran in, her dark hair flying behind her. She stopped abruptly at the bedside, taking in all the machines and bandages with wide eyes. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "A little, but I'm okay. Mama said you were really brave, that you fought the bad guys and won." "I had something important to fight for." Victor held out his good arm. "Come here." Iris climbed carefully onto the bed, nestling against his uninjured side. She was warm and solid and real, this miracle child he had almost lost before ever really having. "Tell me about the horses," he said. "What did you learn while I was sleeping?" As Iris launched into an enthusiastic explanation of different horse breeds and their characteristics, Lena stood in the doorway watching her family together for the first time. She pulled out her phone and took a photo, capturing the moment. Victor in a hospital bed with their daughter tucked against his side, both of them smiling despite the bandages and IV lines and the violence that had brought them here. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the fairy tale she had once dreamed of, but it was theirs, built from sacrifice and survival, and a love that had endured 5 years of separation and multiple attempts to destroy it. And sometimes, Lena thought, that was enough. Sometimes flawed and complicated and dangerous was exactly the right kind of happy ending. Because the alternative was living without it, and she had tried that already. She wouldn't make that mistake again. 3 weeks after the hospital, Victor stood in the backyard of a house he had bought under 3 different shell corporations, watching Iris learn to ride a horse. The property was 40 acres outside the city, far enough for safety but close enough that he could still run his business. High fences disguised as rustic ranch barriers, security cameras hidden in trees, armed guards positioned as groundskeepers. Everything designed to look normal while being anything but. Iris sat atop a gentle mare named Clementine, her small hands gripping the reins exactly as the instructor had shown her, her face radiant with joy. Lena stood by the fence, camera in hand, capturing every moment of their daughter's triumph. "She's a natural," the instructor called out. "Got her father's confidence." Victor felt something warm bloom in his chest at the casual assumption that he had always been there, that this was normal father-daughter bonding instead of weeks of careful rebuilding. His phone buzzed. Marcus, with the daily update on business operations. "Not now," Victor said without answering. For the first time in 20 years, business could wait. Iris completed her circuit of the paddock and brought Clementine to a stop near the fence, beaming at her parents. "Did you see, Daddy? I didn't fall once." "I saw. You were perfect." Victor moved closer, reaching up to pat the horse's neck. "Want to try a trot next week?" "Can I? Really?" "If your instructor says you're ready, absolutely." After the lesson ended and Iris had helped brush down Clementine with careful enthusiasm, the 3 of them walked back to the house together. Iris ran ahead chasing butterflies while Victor and Lena followed at a slower pace. "She's happy," Lena observed. "Happier than I've seen her in years." "So are you." "I am." Lena slipped her hand into his. "It's strange, isn't it? After everything we went through, after all the years apart, we're actually making this work." "Strange and terrifying and perfect," Victor agreed, "though I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "There's always another shoe with your life, but we'll handle it when it comes." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "I talked to Sarah yesterday. She wants to visit, meet you properly." "How much does she know?" "Enough. That you're Iris's father, that we have a complicated history, that you're trying to build something legitimate." Lena paused. "She's protective of me, of us. You should expect some interrogation." "I can handle protective sisters. I'm more worried about the other conversations we need to have." Victor glanced toward Iris, making sure she was out of earshot. "She's going to have questions soon. Real ones. About what I do and why people tried to hurt us." "I know. But we tell her the truth. Age-appropriate but honest. That's what we agreed." "The truth is that her father is a criminal who built his fortune on illegal activities. How do you make that age-appropriate?" "You tell her that you made mistakes when you were younger, that you're trying to do better now, and that sometimes doing the right thing means leaving behind the wrong things." Lena squeezed his hand. "She doesn't need to know everything, Victor. Just enough to understand why we have guards and why we're careful." Inside the house, Iris immediately ran to wash her hands, chattering about Clementine and asking if they could get their own horse. Lena followed to help, leaving Victor alone in the kitchen with his thoughts. Marcus called back. "Sorry," Victor answered. "I was with Iris. What's the situation?" "The Chicago Syndicate sent an emissary. They want to negotiate for the territories Kozlov tried to take. Tell them no. Those territories stay ours. They're offering significant compensation. It could be a peaceful resolution." Victor looked through the doorway where he could see Iris showing Lena a drawing she had made of her writing lesson, both of them laughing at something on the page. I don't want peaceful resolution with people who might decide leverage is the best strategy again. I want clear boundaries and consequences for crossing them. He paused. But Marcus, I also don't want unnecessary conflict. Make it clear we're willing to negotiate other territories, just not the ones they tried to take through Kozlov. You're getting soft, boss. I'm getting priorities. There's a difference. After he ended the call, Victor found Lena in Iris's bedroom, helping her change out of riding clothes. Their daughter was describing every detail of the lesson with the enthusiasm of someone who had discovered a new passion. And Daddy said maybe next week I can learn to trot, which is faster than walking but not as fast as galloping, and Clementine is so smart she knew exactly where to go. Victor leaned against the doorframe, watching them, and felt the full weight of what he stood to lose if he made the wrong move, if he let his guard down, if he failed to protect what mattered most. That night, after Iris was asleep, Victor and Lena sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, watching the stars emerge over their property. The security lights created a perimeter of safety, but beyond that, the darkness held all the usual threats. I want to marry you again, Victor said suddenly. Properly this time, with Iris there, with no secrets between us. Lena turned to look at him, surprise evident in her expression. We're barely figuring out how to live together. You want to add marriage to the complexity? I want to show you and Iris that I'm committed, that this isn't temporary or conditional. He took her hand. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but you gave me one anyway. I want to honor that. Victor, we don't need a piece of paper to prove I need it. I need to stand in front of people we care about and promise to be the man you both deserve. I need to give Iris the family she should have had from the beginning. His voice was rough with emotion. Please, Lena, let me do this right. She studied his face in the dim light, seeing the sincerity there, the desperate need to fix what he had broken 5 years ago. Okay, she said finally, but small. Just family and close friends, and Iris gets to help plan everything. Deal. Victor pulled her close, kissing her with the kind of passion that had first brought them together, that had survived separation and violence, and every reason not to work. I love you. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. You already are, Lena whispered against his lips. Every single day. They married 6 weeks later in the garden of their new home, with Iris as the flower girl and Marcus as best man. Lena's sister Sarah gave her away, her initial skepticism of Victor softening when she saw how he looked at her sister and niece. The ceremony was simple and honest, their vows more meaningful for being chosen the second time around. I promise to protect you, Victor said, holding Lena's hands, but also to let you protect me. To be your partner, not just your defender. To build a life where our daughter can be safe and loved and free. I promise to stay, Lena replied, tears streaming down her face. To trust you even when it's hard. To be honest about my fears. To build this complicated, beautiful life with you, no matter what comes. Iris stood between them, holding their hands, and when the officiant said they could kiss, their daughter cheered louder than anyone. The reception was small but joyful, a celebration of second chances and hard-won happiness. Marcus cornered Victor near the champagne table with a serious expression. The Chicago Syndicate accepted your terms. They're backing off the Eastern Territories and focusing expansion west instead. Good. Any other threats I should know about? A few minor players making noise, but nothing immediate. You've got time to enjoy your wedding before the next crisis. Marcus smiled slightly. She's good for you, boss. Both of them are. I've never seen you this happy. I've never been this happy. Victor watched Lena dancing with Iris, both of them laughing. Or this terrified of losing it. Then don't lose it. Keep making the smart choices. Transition more operations to legitimate businesses like you've been planning. Give yourself a way out of the life before it takes everything from you. Victor nodded slowly. It was advice he had been giving himself for months, but hearing it from Marcus made it feel more urgent, more possible. The next morning, while Lena and Iris slept in, Victor sat in his home office with Marcus and their attorneys, mapping out a 5-year plan to legitimize the majority of his operations. Gambling establishments would become entertainment venues with proper licensing. Protection rackets would transform into legitimate security services. The drug operations he had already shut down would stay buried. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be complete. Some parts of his empire existed too deep in the shadows to ever see daylight. But he could minimize the danger, create distance between the criminal elements and his family. He could try to be the man Iris deserved as a father. 2 years passed with surprising peace. Iris turned 7, confident and bright, learning to jump obstacles on Clementine and asking questions about everything from horse anatomy to why people made bad choices. Victor and Lena navigated the complicated dance of parenting together, learning each other's rhythms and boundaries. Victor kept his promise to transition his business, slowly and carefully moving assets into legitimate enterprises. Some of his old associates grumbled about going soft, but none challenged him directly. His reputation for ruthlessness when protecting his family had spread far enough to deter most threats. But then Marcus came to him with news that made Victor's blood run cold. "We've got a problem. Kozlov had a brother, Alexei Kozlov, and he's been building an alliance specifically to come after you." Victor sat in his downtown office, the city spreading below him through floor-to-ceiling windows. How credible is the threat? Very. He's been recruiting for 8 months, building a coalition of everyone you've ever crossed. They're calling it retribution for Dmitri's death. Marcus laid out intelligence reports. And Victor, they know about the house, about Lena and Iris. They have the same information Dmitri had, plus 2 years of updated surveillance. The world tilted. Victor had thought the threat was over, had let himself believe they were safe, but the past never stayed buried in his world. When are they moving? Could be weeks, could be months. They're being careful, learning from Dmitri's mistakes. Victor stood, pacing to the windows. Below, ordinary people lived ordinary lives, unaware of the violence that lurked beneath their city's surface. He had tried so hard to build something different, something better. But maybe Marcus had been right years ago. Maybe his world didn't allow for happy families. That night, he sat Lena down after Iris was asleep and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face growing paler with each detail. "So what do we do?" she asked when he finished. "Run again? Hide somewhere new?" "I don't know. Running didn't work last time. They found you anyway." "Then we fight, like we did before." Lena's voice was steady, despite her fear. "You build your defenses, I keep Iris safe, and we trust that we're stronger together than any threat against us." "Lena, if something happens to me, then I'll handle it. I'm not the same woman who ran 5 years ago, Victor. I'm stronger now, tougher." She took his hands. "But nothing is going to happen to you because you're going to be smart and careful, and you're going to come home to us." Victor pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I'm tired, Lena. Tired of fighting, tired of watching over my shoulder, tired of my past threatening everything I love." "I know, but we don't get to be tired yet. We get through this, and then maybe we can think about getting out completely. Moving somewhere far away, starting completely over." "You would do that? Leave everything?" "For you and Iris? I'd leave the whole world behind." The attack when it came was nothing like the last one. Alexei Kozlov didn't send men with guns to their house. Instead, he struck at the heart of Victor's organization, targeting his legitimate businesses with legal challenges and his illegal operations with coordinated law enforcement raids. He used lawyers and politicians instead of bullets, dismantling Victor's empire piece by piece, and slowly, methodically, he isolated Victor from his allies and resources. "He's smarter than his brother," Marcus reported 3 months into the siege. "He knows he can't beat you in direct confrontation, so he's strangling you slowly. And it's working. We've lost 40% of our revenue streams. Can we negotiate?" "I tried. He wants everything. Your territory, your businesses, and your head on a platter for killing Dmitri." Victor sat in what remained of his organization, feeling the walls closing in. He could fight back, could unleash the kind of violence that had built his reputation. But that would only prove Alexei right, would make Victor exactly the monster his enemies claimed he was. And it would put Lena and Iris in the crossfire again. "What if I gave him what he wants?" Victor said quietly. Marcus stared at him. "You can't be serious. Not my head, but the territory, the businesses. What if I just walked away?" "You'd have nothing. No protection, no resources, nothing to fall back on." "I'd have my family. That's everything that matters." "Oh, Victor, You can't just walk away from this life. You know too much. You've made too many enemies. They'll never let you go. Then I'll make them let me go. Victor stood, his decision crystallizing. Set up a meeting with Alexei Kozlov. Tell him I want to negotiate a truce. The meeting happened in the same restaurant where Victor had confronted Dmitri years earlier. Alexei Kozlov was older than his brother had been, mid-50s, with the cold eyes of someone who understood patience and revenge in equal measure. Mr. Hale, I'm surprised you agreed to meet. I'm tired of fighting, Victor said honestly. I want to end this. By surrendering? By negotiating. You want revenge for your brother, I understand that. Family loyalty is something I respect. Victor leaned forward. But killing me won't bring Dmitri back. It'll just create more violence, more death, more families destroyed. What are you proposing? I leave. Completely. You take my territories, my operations, everything I've built. In exchange, you guarantee the safety of my family. No retribution, no future threats, no using them as leverage ever. Alexei studied him carefully. And you'd just walk away? From everything? For my wife and daughter? Absolutely. You're either very brave or very foolish. I'm a father who's finally figured out what matters. Victor met his eyes steadily. Do we have a deal? Alexei was silent for a long moment, weighing options and outcomes. On one condition, he said finally, you leave the city entirely. No coming back, no maintaining contacts, no involvement in the business. You disappear completely. Victor felt the enormity of what he was agreeing to. Leaving meant abandoning everything he had built, everyone who had been loyal to him, the entire life he had known. But it also meant Iris could grow up safe. Lena could stop looking over her shoulder. They could be a normal family. Deal, Victor said. The transition took 6 weeks. Victor transferred everything to Alexei through legitimate channels, signed papers that stripped away his empire piece by piece. He set up trust funds for his people, made sure those who had been loyal were taken care of. Marcus refused the money, saying he would find his own way, but accepted Victor's gratitude with quiet dignity. Lena sold the house and packed their lives into moving trucks, while Victor finalized the last details. Iris didn't understand why they were leaving, only that it was another adventure. Where are we going? She asked as they drove away from the only home she really remembered. Somewhere new, Lena said from the passenger seat. Somewhere quiet where Daddy doesn't have to work so much. Will I have to leave Clementine? Clementine is coming with us, Victor assured her. I already arranged transport. She'll meet us there. Where's there? Victor and Lena exchanged glances. They had chosen a small town in Oregon, far from the city and Victor's old life. A place where they could be normal, where Iris could go to regular school, where violence was something that happened to other people. You'll see when we get there, Victor said, but I promise, you're going to love it. The house in Oregon was nothing like the ranch they had left behind. Smaller, simpler, just 3 bedrooms on 5 acres with a barn that needed repairs and fences that sagged in places. But it was theirs, bought with clean money under their real names, no shell corporations or hidden ownership. They spent their first month fixing things, the 3 of them working together to repair the barn and paint Iris's room and plant a garden. Victor learned skills he had never needed before. Carpentry, basic plumbing, how to fix a fence without calling someone to do it for him. He learned how to be ordinary. Lena found work at a local veterinary clinic, picking up where she had left off years ago. Iris started 2nd grade at the public school, making friends easily, complaining about homework like every other child her age. And slowly, carefully, they built a life that had nothing to do with Victor's past. But the past had one more card to play. Victor was in the barn one afternoon, mucking out Clementine's stall when a car pulled up the long driveway. He tensed, old instincts screaming danger, but the man who emerged was alone and unarmed, dressed in an expensive suit that marked him as out of place in their rural setting. Victor Hale. Who's asking? The man pulled out credentials, FBI. Victor's stomach dropped. Agent Morrison, I need to talk to you about Alexei Kozlov. They sat on the porch, far enough from the house that Lena and Iris wouldn't overhear. Agent Morrison laid out photographs of Kozlov's operations, the expansion of his criminal empire, the violence that had followed Victor's departure. He's worse than you ever were, Morrison said. More brutal, less controlled, and we need your help to bring him down." "I'm out," Victor said flatly. "I made a deal. I walked away." "I know, and I respect that. But Kozlov is using your old networks to traffic things you never would have touched. Children, Victor. He's using your reputation and infrastructure to hurt kids." Victor felt sick. "I didn't know." "How could you? You've been here playing farmer while he turns your empire into something monstrous." Morrison leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to go back to that life. I'm asking you to testify. Give us what we need to dismantle his operation from the inside. If I testify, I'm admitting to my own crimes. We'll offer immunity, witness protection if needed. But we need you, Mr. Hale. You're the only one who knows enough about the organization to make charges stick." Victor looked toward the house, where Lena was visible through the kitchen window making dinner, Iris helping her with something at the counter. This peaceful life they had built, this normal existence they had fought so hard for. Testifying would risk all of it. But children were being hurt because of systems he had built, networks he had created. "I need to talk to my wife," Victor said. That night, after Iris was asleep, Victor told Lena everything. She listened with her arms wrapped around herself, her face reflecting the same conflict he felt. "If you do this, we might have to disappear again," she said. "New names, new town, lose everything we've built here." "I know. But if you don't, you'll never forgive yourself for what Kozlov is doing with your old organization." "No, I won't." Lena was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the Oregon darkness. "Do it," she said finally. "Testify, stop him, and then we'll deal with whatever comes after together." "You're sure?" "I'm sure that the man I fell in love with was complicated but fundamentally good, that he made bad choices but tried to do better. And I'm sure that protecting children is worth any risk." She turned to face him. "We've run before. We can do it again if we have to, but we do it knowing we did the right thing." Victor pulled her close, overwhelmed by her strength and certainty. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." The trial took 8 months. Victor testified for 3 weeks, laying bare every detail of his former organization and how Kozlov had corrupted it. The prosecution used his testimony to build a case that resulted in over 40 indictments and the complete dismantling of Kozlov's operation. Alexei Kozlov himself received a life sentence without parole. But the victory came at a cost. The FBI couldn't guarantee Victor's safety after the trial, not with so many people implicated by his testimony. Witness protection was offered, new identities for the entire family, relocation to somewhere far from Oregon, and everything they had built. Victor sat in the prosecutor's office, staring at the paperwork that would erase Victor Hale entirely and replace him with someone new. "What name do you want?" the agent asked. Victor thought of Iris, who would have to learn to answer to something different, who would lose her friends and her school. He thought of Lena, who would have to start over again, building a practice from nothing in a strange place. He thought of all the ways his choices continued to cost the people he loved. "I want whatever keeps them safest," he said. "Then you'll be Thomas Warren. Your wife will be Lena Warren. Your daughter will be Iris Warren. And you'll be moving to a small town in Vermont where no one knows you or your history." 3 days later, they packed up again. Iris cried when they loaded Clementine into the trailer, when she said goodbye to her friends, when she asked for the 100th time why they had to leave. "Because Daddy did something brave," Lena told her. "And sometimes being brave means making hard choices." "I don't want to be brave. I just want to stay here." "I know, baby, but sometimes we don't get what we want. Sometimes we get what we need instead." Vermont was cold and quiet, mountains instead of plains, snow instead of summer heat. The house the FBI provided was smaller than their Oregon home, older, in need of the same kinds of repairs. But it was safe. Thomas Warren, he still thought of himself as Victor, but was learning to answer to the new name, found work as a consultant for security firms, using his knowledge of criminal organizations to help businesses protect themselves. Lena opened a small practice treating farm animals, rebuilding her reputation from scratch. And Iris, resilient in the way of children, adjusted to her new school and made new friends and slowly stopped asking when they could go home. Because this was home now. Years passed. Iris grew from a child into a teenager, bright and determined, with her father's strategic mind and her mother's compassion. She excelled at everything she tried, became captain of her school's debate team, talked about college, and becoming a lawyer to help people who couldn't help themselves. She never knew her father had been a criminal, only that he had done something dangerous to protect children and they had to hide because of it. The sanitized version of truth that parents told when the real story was too complicated. On her 18th birthday, Victor sat her down and told her everything. He told her about the empire he had built, the violence he had ordered, the man he had been before she was born. He told her about Kozlov and the trial and the real reason they had disappeared so many times. Iris listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock and betrayal and understanding. "Why tell me now?" she asked when he finished. "Because you're an adult. Because you deserve to know the truth about your father." Victor's voice was steady despite the fear churning in his gut. "And because I don't want secrets between us anymore." Were you a good person who did bad things, or a bad person who tried to do good things? The question cut to the heart of everything Victor had wrestled with for 20 years. "I honestly don't know," he admitted. "I'd like to think I was good underneath the bad choices, but I can't judge that for myself. Only the people I hurt and the people I helped can answer that." Iris was quiet for a long time, processing. "I need time to think about this," she said finally, "to figure out how I feel about who you were and who you are now. Take all the time you need. I'll answer any questions you have whenever you're ready." She left him sitting alone in the living room, and Victor felt the weight of his past pressing down like physical force. But 3 days later, Iris came to him while he was working in the barn. "I've been thinking," she said, leaning against Clementine's stall, "about everything you told me. And I think you were a bad person who became good. Not perfect, but good. Because you chose us over your empire, you testified even though it put us in danger, and you've spent my whole life trying to be better." She met his eyes. "That doesn't erase what you did before, but it counts for something." Victor felt tears threaten, forced them back. "I'm sorry you got me as a father. You deserved someone better." "Maybe, but I got you, and you've been pretty good at it." Iris smiled slightly. "Plus the hiding and moving thing made me really adaptable. Should look great on college applications." He laughed despite everything, pulled his daughter into a hug. "I love you, whatever else I've done wrong. I need you to know that." "I know, Dad. I've always known." They stood together in the barn, father and daughter. The past finally settled between them. 10 more years passed. Iris graduated from law school and took a job with a nonprofit defending children in the foster system. She met a kind man named David who worked as a teacher, married him in a small ceremony in Vermont, and eventually gave Victor and Lena a grandson they named after his grandfather, though he would know him only as Thomas. Lena's practice thrived, her reputation for skilled and compassionate care spreading throughout their rural community. She became the person people called at 2 a.m. when their animals were sick, the one they trusted with their most precious creatures. And Victor, Thomas, lived a quiet life that bore no resemblance to his past. He consulted, he repaired things around the house. He taught his grandson to ride Clementine's daughter, and he woke up every morning next to the woman he loved without wondering if this would be the day his past caught up with him. He lived, in other words, like a normal person. On his 70th birthday, Marcus found him. The knock on the door came on a Tuesday afternoon, and when Victor opened it, his old friend stood there looking older and grayer but fundamentally unchanged. "Hello, boss," Marcus said. "How did you find me?" "I've always known where you were. I just respected your choice to disappear." Marcus gestured to the porch. "Can we talk?" They sat in rocking chairs, 2 old men looking out at Vermont mountains while the past settled around them like snow. "Why now?" Victor asked. "Because I'm dying. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less." Marcus said it matter-of-factly, like reporting on business operations. "And I wanted to tell you something before I go." "What?" "That what you did mattered, testifying against Kozlov, dismantling that operation. It saved lives, Victor. Real lives, real kids who would have been hurt or worse if you hadn't had the courage to walk away from everything and do the right thing." Victor felt his throat tighten. It didn't feel courageous. It felt like the only choice. That's what courage is. Doing what's right even when it costs you everything. Marcus smiled slightly. "You built something good here. Family, peace, a real life. That's rarer than any empire." I just tried to be better than I was. And you succeeded. That's more than most of us can say. They talked until sunset, filling in the years between, sharing stories of the life Victor had left and the life Marcus had built in the ruins. When Marcus finally stood to leave, Victor walked him to his car. "Will I see you again?" Victor asked. "Probably not, but that's okay. I gotta say what I needed to say." Marcus extended his hand and Victor shook it firmly. "Live well, boss. You earned it." Victor watched him drive away, this last connection to his old life disappearing down the country road. Inside, Lena found him standing at the window. "Who was that?" "An old friend, saying goodbye." She came to stand beside him, and they watched the sunset together in comfortable silence. "Any regrets?" Lena asked eventually. Victor thought about it honestly, weighing everything he had given up against everything he had gained. "Not about you. Not about Iris or the life we built." He took her hand. "The things I did before, the man I was, I regret that. But I can't regret the path that led me to you. Even with all the running and hiding and fear. Even with all of that. Because standing here with you, having raised a daughter who's making the world better, having a grandson who will never know what I was, that's redemption, Lena. That's the only thing that matters." She leaned into him, and they stood together as the last light faded from the sky. Years later, when Victor was 83 and his body had begun the slow failing that came with age, he sat in a hospital room much different from the one where this story had begun. No bullet wounds this time, just the quiet shutdown of a life well lived. Iris sat beside his bed, her hair now streaked with gray, her hands holding his the way he had once held hers when she was small. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I've been working on a project with the nonprofit, using what I learned about organized crime from you to help law enforcement break up trafficking rings." She smiled. "We've saved 43 children in the past 3 years." Victor felt his heart swell with pride and pain in equal measure. "You're using my past for good. I'm finishing what you started, making sure your knowledge helps instead of hurts." Iris squeezed his hand. "I wanted you to know that before, well, I wanted you to know your legacy isn't what you did wrong. It's what you did right in the end." "Thank you," Victor whispered, "for forgiving me, for becoming who you are despite who I was." "Because of who you became," Iris corrected. "You showed me that people can change, that mistakes don't define us, that courage is choosing better even when it's hard." Lena entered then, moving slowly with the careful steps of age, but still beautiful, still the woman who had saved him by loving him enough to leave, and loving him enough to come back. "How are you feeling?" she asked, settling into the chair on his other side. "Tired, but happy." Victor looked between his wife and daughter, these two people who had given his life meaning. "So happy." "Good. Because we're not done with you yet." Lena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Iris's son, your grandson, wants to bring his daughter to meet you tomorrow. Your great-granddaughter." "I'd like that. To meet her. To see what came from all of this." That night, as Victor drifted in and out of sleep, he thought about the long arc of his life. The violence of his youth, the empire built on fear, the moment he met a quiet veterinarian who would change everything. The daughter he hadn't known existed, the 5 years of separation, the moment he nearly lost them both, the choice to walk away from power for love, the testimony that cost him everything material but gave him everything that mattered, the quiet years in Vermont, watching Iris grow, loving Lena through ordinary days and ordinary nights. It hadn't been the life he planned. It had been better than anything he could have imagined. When Victor died 3 days later, surrounded by his family, his last thought was of Lena's smile on their wedding day, the second one, the real one, and the way Iris had called him daddy for the first time. He died knowing he had been loved, and in the end, that was the only power that mattered. At his funeral, Iris gave a eulogy that didn't mention his criminal past or the violence of his youth. She talked instead about a father who taught her that mistakes weren't endings, but opportunities to choose better. About a man who had the courage to give up everything for his family. About someone who proved that redemption was always possible if you were brave enough to reach for it. Lena sat in the front row, holding her grandson's hand. her great-granddaughter on her lap, surrounded by the family that had grown from one terrible choice and 100 good ones that followed. After the service, she placed a single letter on Victor's grave, one she had found among his things after he died. It was addressed to her, dated the day he signed their divorce papers 25 years earlier. She opened it and read his words from so long ago. "I'm setting you free because I love you. But I want you to know that losing you will be the greatest punishment I ever endured. If there's any justice in this world, someday you'll understand that everything I did for you, even letting you go." Lena folded the letter carefully, pressing it against her heart. "I understand now," she whispered to the grave. "I've understood for a long time, and I came back because love was stronger than fear, stronger than your past, stronger than everything that tried to break us." She stood, taking her great-granddaughter's hand, and walked back toward the car where her family waited. Behind her, the grave stood quiet in the Vermont sunshine, marking the final resting place of a man who had been both criminal and father, both violent and gentle, both everything wrong and everything right. Thomas Warren, the headstone read, beloved husband, father, grandfather. But Lena knew the truth. Victor Hale had died redeemed, loved, and forgiven. Not for being perfect, but for choosing love when it mattered most. And that, she thought as she drove away with her family, was the only ending that ever mattered. Love had outlived power. Love had outlived violence. Love had outlived everything, including death itself. And in a world that often felt dark and hopeless, that was the greatest victory of all.